Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 6, Text number 9. Upam tavaitat purusha shabejang Shreyor tibhir vaidika tantrikena Yogena datak sahadastrilokan Pashyamyamushmin uha vishvamurtau Rupam, form. Tava, your. Etat, this. Purusha Rishabha, O best of all personalities. Ijam, worshipable. Shreyaha, ultimate auspiciousness. Artibihi, by persons who desire. Vaidika, under the direction of Vedic instructions. Tantrikena, realized by followers of Tantras, like Narada Pancharatra. Yogena, by practice of mystic yoga. Dataha, O Supreme Director. Saha, with. Naha, us, the demigods. Trilokan, controlling the three worlds. Pashyami, we see directly. Amushmin, in you. Oh. Ha, completely manifested. Vishvamurtau, in you, who have the universal form. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O best of persons, O Supreme Director, those who actually aspire for supreme good fortune, worship this form of your Lordship according to the Vedic Tantras. My Lord, we can see all the three worlds in you. Purport. This is Lord Brahma continuing to speak to the Supreme Lord on behalf of the demigods. The Vedic mantras say, Yasmin vigate saram eva vigyatam bhavati. When the devotee sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his meditation, or when he sees the Lord personally, face to face, he becomes aware of everything within this universe. Indeed, nothing is unknown to him. Everything within this material world is fully manifested to a devotee who has seen the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavad Gita 4:34 therefore advises, Tad vidi panipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. Lord Brahma is one of these self-realized authorities. Svayambhur Narada Shambhu, Kumara Kapilo Manu. One must therefore accept the disciplic succession from Lord Brahma, and then one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in fullness. Here the word Vishvamurtau indicates that everything exists in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is able to worship him can see everything in him and see him in everything. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Shvayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Shva Padanti Kam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhiveva Padanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Dear devotees, I apologize for not attending the morning program up to now. I have no excuse except for my, fallen condition. We hope that you don't follow my bad example. You follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions to take advantage here in Sri Vrindavan Dham, for this is the greatest place on earth for receiving the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Everywhere is good, but here especially in Vrindavan Dham, Prabhupada's home. So when you're in the home of Srila Prabhupada, he's inviting us here that we should try to do everything for Prabhupada's pleasure, and you'll get so much benefit. So in this verse today, these continuing prayers, whenever one prays to the Lord, one generally asks for something. The demigods have certainly got something in mind to request the Lord. They're having a hard time with the demons. I guess we're also having a hard time with demons. I am. I don't know about you. And it doesn't mean those other persons around me or other troublesome items around. Sometimes you have a problem with the monkeys. They steal your glasses or some other item, or just, scare you or whatever it is. Sometimes even worse. Other things which Krishna's arranged, allowed to be there for purification, for our own purpose. To remind us that the real demons, the real anarthas, are within our own hearts. And basically this is what we're seeing here, that Prabhupada is quoting here this verse, Yasmin Vigate Sarvam Evam Vigatam Bhavati. And he quotes it many, many times. I don't know how many, but many, many. It's a very commonly quoted verse, more or less paraphrased in the purport. The meaning of this, the literal meaning is, if one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of all controllers, one can understand everything else. That's from the Mundaka Upanishad. And most people are very busy trying to understand everything else and missing the point. Devotees are busy focusing all their knowledge, everything. There's many things to learn, which are relevant to the ultimate understanding. This verse is interesting. It's got the elements of Sambandha Gyan very strongly emphasized, and indication of Abhideya Gyan and also indication of Prayojana Gyan are indicated in this verse. The Bhagavatam is dealing with these three subject matters, basically speaking. And here we see emphasized also in this particular verse to know Krishna. Particularly in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is emphasizing this, that if somehow or another we know Krishna, and how we know Krishna, we all have, probably most of you, if not all of us, are familiar with verses from Bhagavad Gita, how we know Krishna. In many places it's mentioned, it's indicated. In some places specifically, we see specifically in the 11th chapter, specifically 7th, 9th, 11th, 12th, 18th, but in many other chapters specifically How do we know Krishna? And it's clearly mentioned that Bhakti-mam abhijanati yavanyas chasmi tattvata. To know Krishna is through devotional service, which includes, it's not just sentiment, it includes practical application, study of scripture, performance of devotional services of various kinds, chanting of the holy name of primary, worshipping the deity. So many different limbs are there, so many different aspects are there, which are meant to be, because we have these various anarthas. Sometimes anarthas are likened to demons. Sometimes we hear about demons in Vrindavan and how Krishna kills the demons. But we have these demons in our hearts, enemies in our hearts, and basically they have to be killed, or they have to be subdued. Some of them can be engaged in Krishna's service. And there's a process, so the spiritual master gives that process. Srila Prabhupada giving us that process. There are general and specific instructions of the spiritual master. General instructions, Srila Prabhupada's instructions, there are some obviously specific ones, but the basic ones are basically general, applicable, beneficial for all. The degree, just like medicine, the degree of intake may vary, but nonetheless it is there. Medicine is required. So the sadhana program, the spiritual program Srila Prabhupada has given us, the Srimad Bhagavatam translation, purports the performance of devotional service. Everything is medicinal. It's bhavoshati chotamanobi ramat. It cures us of this disease condition of life. So shadi. Because it's all aimed at, yes, Cheto Darpana Marjana Bhava Mahadevarnam, yes, to cleanse our hearts of all these dirty things. But it's not just that, of course. It's to awaken within our hearts our love or our devotion to Krishna, our attraction towards Krishna, beginning, you could say, with that services. So the spiritual master is giving us that in order to give us this opportunity, because we don't know Krishna, at least I don't. We know what we know from whatever we hear from Srila Prabhupada, and if Krishna gives us some realizations, if he's very merciful, he may, within the heart. But we learn that, as this verse in the purport is saying here, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevya udekshanti te jnanam ganinas tadvadarshana. Key verse of the Bhagavad Gita, we have to hear from a spiritual master who has seen the truth. So Srila Prabhupada has always seen the truth, we understand that. And he's imparting knowledge to cleanse our hearts. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gananjana Shalakya. It's quite straightforward. It's quite a straightforward purport in many ways. The difficulty is application. We have to learn from the pure devotee who's seen the truth. It's like any situation, if you've seen something, you can describe it to others. If you haven't seen it, you're kind of like maybe speculate a little bit, or you've heard a bit about it, this and that, put a few things together, try to make it sound correct, but it may not be complete. But one who's seen the truth knows the absolute truth in full. Nothing is, let's say, unknown to that personality. And it doesn't mean that they're like some kind of maha computer, 50 billion gigabytes or whatever it would be. I don't know how much it'd have to be. But it's not like that. They're informed by the Lord in the heart informs the devotee within the heart of whatever they need to know, pure devotees. Externally we may think otherwise, but that's how it works. It's not required to know all the finery details necessarily, but what is relevant. And they impart upon the devotee that which is relevant. And it's our good fortune we have the opportunity to hear from such a pure devotee as Srila Prabhupada. So, and that means not just hearing and repeating, but it means action also, putting into practical action what we hear, according to our situation. We're all differently situated, we're not all on the same level, and we're not all the same natured, and so on and so forth, different cultural backgrounds. But this basic principle is mentioned. Can you give me that little Bhagavad Gita? It's the second book, the one underneath. Thank you. It's basically mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. If we turn to the 15th chapter, there's a very nice, the last two verses of the 15th chapter are really nice. We used to learn these verses in the good old days. We used to learn verses every day. And now I forget verses every day. (19 and 20) of the 15th chapter, if you want to follow it. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit because I know how time flies so fast in Vrindavan. Can someone give me a watch, because I can't see through the columns there or through the trees. I have not got that vision yet. Don't think I'll ever in this lifetime have that type of vision. Krishna says, text 19, whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting, notice the word, without doubting, is the knower of everything. Unless Prabhupada said if you got $1,000 or $10,000, you've automatically got $1. Because $10,000 today is nothing, but in those days it was. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharat. So that's one of the results of knowing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubt, is that one automatically. We may not know that, but by the association of the pure devotee, he's very mercifully engaging us in devotional service. Even though we may not have the appropriate knowledge, we have something. We have some faith maybe. It may be fully blossomed. Yastadeva prabhaktir yatadeva tatagaro tasyata yatakarta prakashante mahatmana. But we don't have that implicit faith in the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, not all the imports of the Vedas are revealed unto us, but they're revealed through Srila Prabhupada's writings, through his teachings, through his words, etc., and through other devotees who've heard from Srila Prabhupada, etc. We can understand what is rightful action and what is not rightful action. And following that principle, then we can hopefully our path can become a little clarified. Arjuna lost his way and he approached Krishna and he had the right attitude. It's a matter of attitude, basically speaking. We'll hear about that in a minute. The next verse, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. It is the most confidential part, this knowledge of Krishna. The method of how to know Krishna, sometimes that in the Bhagavad Gita is described as the most confidential knowledge, the method of understanding Krishna, leading up to that understanding. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. There's another nice couplet of verses in the 6th chapter. Well, I think it's the 6th chapter. Let's see. Here it is. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Because in this purport it also says that this knowledge means that we'll see Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna. That's a very, you could say, complex subject matter which is discussed from various perspectives in the 9th chapter, the beginning of the 9th chapter. They would see it slightly differently worded, it's understood slightly differently, but in principle, everything is coming from Krishna. And Krishna is present everywhere. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Nothing exists in reality separately from Krishna. As this verse says, Krishna Murtau, last line of this verse, one is able to worship and can see everything in him and see him in everything. So you'll see this verse, text 29, this is one verse in the Bhagavad Gita which explains exactly the same thing. And the next verse, which is a little bit more famous, for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. It means basically one is always Krishna conscious, isn't it? One doesn't see things only in relation to me, to ourselves. Usually we react to the world around us in relation to ourselves. And afterwards we may philosophize a little bit and start thinking of how we can see it in relationship with Krishna. But for many people, the immediate reaction is to see different circumstances we find ourselves in relationship to ourselves, and react accordingly, complain, or whatever it may be, isn't it? Get on somebody's case, and so on and so forth, whatever it is. Become upset, frustrated, not really seeing Krishna's hand working, even through him. Prabhupada explains this on many places. One place I know is Teachings of Lord Queen Kunti. He explains this is how the devotee sees when some difficult situation comes along. The devotee sees this as Krishna's teaching us a lesson. We may have to deal with the situation, but it's Krishna's speaking perhaps through a situation, not maybe seen, but indirectly to us, teaching us a lesson. Learn. You're not the controller. We're not the enjoyer. This is the problem that causes the fall down, and that we think that I'm here to enjoy, and that this world's here for me to own. This belongs to me, and this is for my pleasure. This is the general state of thought. This Prabhupada describes it. He says this is a weakness of heart, and it's a general condition of the living entity. We get affected by this sometimes, We get really upset when we lose things. Of course, we can see it's Krishna's, and Krishna's property has been lost, but it's not always like that. Sometimes we think it's mine, It's for my enjoyment, sometimes. So those are just a few little verses. There are others too, but we'll leave it at that for now, because time doesn't allow us. Now, Prabhupada refers in this purport to a few other verses here, which are mentioned. One verse is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 6th canto. It's a verse spoken by Yamaraja, famous verse. Svayambur Narada Shambhu Kumara Kapila Manu. And it goes, I do not know the Sanskrit, I'm an idiot. But if some or another we know the principle behind it, who knows the actual message, we may not know all the details, but if we know the actual purpose behind it, and the message which is given there. I'll read the translation of that verse. I did print it up here. Lord Brahma, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Lord Kapila. I should be asking this, but time doesn't allow it so short. Svayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, Grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami, and I, referring to Yamaraj. So we've got 12 persons there. These are known as the 12 Mahajans, quite a famous Mahajanayena, Taksapanta, follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans. This verse is often quoted. There are many other Mahajans. Srila Prabhupada's Mahajan, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Mahajan, they're all Mahajans. But these specifically, universally speaking, they have this responsibility. Lord Shiva, Bhagavan Narada, Lord Brahma, the 4 Kumaras, Lord Kapila, Svayambhuva Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, Grandfather Bhishma, Bali Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami, and I myself. These are the 4 listed here by Yamaraj. To give this, what do? And I myself. They know the real religious principles. Their business is to establish, as Krishna's business is, on behalf of Krishna, religious principles in this world, not just some, temporary Naimittika Dharma, some dogma for time, place, and circumstances, but real religious principles which hold fast in all, maybe, different kinds, just like the Tantras are mentioned here. There's Sattvata Tantrics, also Tantrikas. They're in the mode of goodness, like the Narada Pancharatra is considered amongst those. It's in the mode of goodness. For people in the mode of goodness. Directions, how to apply the Vedic truths in your lives, according to time and circumstance, are given there. By the different great sages, and according to the modes of nature ones in there are different tantras, some are in the mode of ignorance, passion, like that. So that's their duty, is to impart upon the society relevant instructions, religious principles. That is known, my dear servants, this transcendental religious principle, which is known as Bhagavat Dharma, or surrender unto the Supreme Lord and love for Him, is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. It is very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands it, he is immediately liberated, and thus he returns home back to Godhead. So, they prepare the way like a child. You prepare the way for their education, step by step. So religious principles are supposed to be there for, according to the individual's condition, their adhikar, so they can digest it, apply it, and thus progress on the spiritual path. There are very many different instructions, and people get totally confused in most cases. Not say totally, but very confused in most cases, because they don't know which ones to apply. And even in our own Krishna consciousness endeavors, we may also get confused like that and start, imitating or applying something which is not yet relevant to our particular needs, etc. We may get stuck up on a certain level and not realize, the ultimate goal. We have to, move forward in some way or another. It's a progress. It's a movement. We're meant to move forward. Srila Prabhupada's movement. We're meant to advance in Krishna consciousness. And the idea is if we apply what is relevant, then we move to the next stage. You go at one step, you can then go to the next step. Don't try to jump over. That's the idea. So these Mahajans are supposed to be able to, understand that and apply that according to the time, place, and circumstance. And that's what Srila Prabhupada is doing, still doing. And if we're very serious and sincere. So we're going to move on. So the essential point of understanding this message of the nature of the Supreme Personality of God, that He's all in all, that He's the Supreme Controller, that He's the Sarvakarna Karanam, etc., etc., is this point mentioned here. Sampradaya vihinaye mantraye mataha. This very important verse. Mantraste nishpala mataha. If one is not actually connected with a bona fide disciplic succession, whatever mantras he chants will not bring the desired result. That's from the Padma Purana. So the main thing is mentioned here, Tadvidi Pranipatena, is we have to be connected to a disciplic succession. That's also in the 4th chapter, Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Arjasho Vidu, that this important, very important feature, Divya Gyan, the 4th chapter is transcendental knowledge. So that transcendental knowledge is received from the disciplic succession. That's the most emphasized thing. I would say the key thing in this particular purport of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead is this point of connecting with the Parampara disciplic succession. In the purport to the verse which was just quoted from the 6th canto about the Mahajans, Srila Prabhupada describes that one must connect oneself to one of the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, either the Brahma Sampradaya or the Sri Sampradaya or the Kumara Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya. One of these 4 Sampradayas, one must be connected, and the connection must be correct connection. And Prabhupada emphasized this a lot. In fact, his pride was that he was simply passing on the message of the Sampradaya. He wasn't creating his own interpretation. He was just passing on the message, and sometimes he called himself like a peon. Or he give different examples how we have to pass on that message unchanged. The message unchanged. The actual message, the principles, the actual essence has to be unchanged. Maybe the local details may vary. Now there's an interesting word, sampradaya. Sampradaya. Sam means completely. Pra means like the best, topmost. And daya is giving. And it means that which is giving the topmost. Sampradaya. If one's not connected with the Sampradaya, then as this verse says in the Padma Purana, even if one has received a mantra, and it may be an authorized mantra, a bona fide mantra, but if it's not received from the right source, it has no effectivity. It's just like if you receive a passport from the right source is illegal. From the wrong source, is illegal. From the right source, you have to get the passport. It may look the same. It may look exactly the same, but it's not authorized by the government unless you receive it from the government. We have to receive it from the right source. Otherwise, it won't have the same effect. It may have some other effect, but it won't have the actual ultimate effect. And this is the point. We're very fortunate that we've received this. It's essential. The Vedic literature is this one. Tad Vijnanatam Sugurume Vabhikach Panishwa Samipani Sotyam Brahmanishtam. To understand that Brahmanishta, that spiritual knowledge, one must, it's imperative that we approach a spiritual master. It's not just approaching a spiritual master, it's the same principle as Tadvidi Pranipatena. We have to have a submissive mentality, this verse described. We have to approach the spiritual master in a humble state of mind. And traditionally, one would carry firewood, or in other words, one comes forward as a menial servant to assist the spiritual master in the execution of his service. It's the menial mentality and the menial service to the spiritual master which endears one to the spiritual master. And the Lord, when he's happy and sees that a devotee is doing that, is actually following a submissive application, the Lord then, very pleased, he gives his mercy to that devotee and reveals the truth to that devotee. This is the process. Pleasing the spiritual master is the means of receiving Krishna's mercy. A symptom of such a spiritual master is that he is expert in understanding the Vedic conclusion, and therefore he constantly engages in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That verse is from the Mundaka Upanishad. There's a nice purport in the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, chapter 8. I'll read it. Part of it, not all of it. This is spoken by, Prabhupada says, Madhavacharya points out, and I'll read the Sanskrit again, we're running short of time. One must receive all kinds of mantras from a bona fide spiritual master, otherwise the mantras will not be fruitful. And he quotes Tadvidi Pranipatina. All mantras should be received through the authorized guru, and the disciple must satisfy the guru in all respects. After surrendering at his lotus feet, in the Padma Purana it is also said, we've read that verse already. There are 4 sampradayas, or successions, namely the Brahma Sampradaya. We've mentioned that too. If one wants to advance in spiritual power, one must receive his mantras from one of these bona fide sampradayas. Otherwise, he will never successfully advance in spiritual life. One cannot advance successfully in spiritual life. One might be peaceful, one might have a smile on his face, one might have some, mystic powers or something, even, I don't know. But one will not be able to advance in genuine spiritual life without being connected to one of these disciplic successions. And that's the greatest fortune. It's the most greatest fortune to be connected in that way. Brahmanda Bhamit, no. Bharata, no. Yeah, Brahmanda Bhamita Kaum Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. The greatest fortune, Brahmanda Bhamita Kaum Bhagavan, very fortunate, Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna, because after wandering in this universe for who knows how long, but after wandering in this universe from lifetime to lifetime, by great fortune, one gets the opportunity to associate with the pure devotee of the Lord. And in their association, one receives the seed of bhakti, or devotional service. That's the greatest gift one can give. Daya, the greatest giving, is that gift of devotional service, because that gift can awaken. It's already there potentially. Love of God is in the heart, is awoken. Nityasiddha Krishna Prems, Sadhu Kavanai, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta Karya Udaya. It's already in the heart. And it's awoken by the process of devotional service, especially Shravanadi, hearing and chanting. It can be awoken naturally. The pure devotee gives us the seed, or the instructions, the directions, how we can awaken that love of Godhead, or the ultimate goal of our very existence, is to love Krishna. It was a beautiful verse. I'd like to read another verse in the Gita, because what the result of hearing from a pure devotee is also mentioned in the 4th chapter, actually. Really nice set of verses. After 434, which is the approach of the spiritual master, inquire submissively, the next verse, 435, describes what the result of that is if we approach with the right mentality, right attitude. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For that by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. Similar conclusion. Everything's in Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna, everything comes from Krishna. Everyone's part and parcel. Mami Vaisa Jiva Lonke Jiva Bhuta Sanata. Everyone's part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And that way, if you get angry to anybody, you're getting angry at Krishna. If you find fault in anyone, of course, dutifully speaking, we may have to sometimes point things out, if that's our duty, but not at the person so much, but at the fact that they're not bringing pleasure to Krishna by their ignorant behavior. But one's never angry at any person per se. And there's a nice verse here. A faithful man, just a few verses after that, who is dedicated to this transcendental knowledge which is received from the pure devotee, and who subdues his senses, is eligible to achieve such knowledge. What does that mean? He attains the fruit of that knowledge. In other words, the realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service. Because the knowledge which is being given is devotional service in its various aspects. And having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. So we've got everything. There's nothing lacking. We're here, especially here in Vrindavan, association of devotees in front of the deities, Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're chanting the holy names. We've got everything. Couldn't be luckier if you tried. What's going wrong? What are we doing wrong? Why are we not all, maybe you are. Maybe I'm speaking to myself today. Why am I not self-realized? Why am I still number one rascal, attached to the material world, name, fame, prestige. Become a little expert in hiding it, maybe. Refusing to reveal my mind in confidence to anyone, in case I get degraded or something, or somebody talks bad about me, whatever it may be. Why am I still attached to all kinds of different things, mundane things? Why? What's wrong? Chanting. Must be doing something. Must be wrong. We got the right sampradaya, the right spiritual master, the right philosophy. That's what we understand. Everything, the right process. We're in the right place. So what should we do? I'll read a purport. I'll read a verse. This is from the 10th. No, it's not. It's from the Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita. And you may know this verse. Bahu Janma Karyadi Shravana Kirtana. No, that's not the verse. I thought it was. It's not. What is it? I don't know what. I'm not even going to read it. It's all muddled up here. It looks like the verse, but that's not the verse that's been printed here. Anyway, if one is infested with the 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, despite his endeavor to chant the holy name for many births, he will not get the love of Godhead. That is the ultimate goal of this chanting. Well, that's one thing. Purport. Prabhupada's purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says in this connection that although one may go on chanting the Hare Krishna mantra for many, many years, and it could be any other aspect of devotional service we're engaged in, there is no possibility of attaining the platform of devotional service unless one accepts Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One must follow strictly the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu given in the Sikshastakam, and we see this over and over again. Trinada pisa nichena toror pisa hishna manina manadena kirtaniya siddhari. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. This, Kaviraj Goswami says, we should wear around our neck, just like a necklace, practically speaking, constant remembrance when we chant. And we have to also, I had no time, but discuss and understand the depth and the real applicative meaning of humility, tolerance, and respect for others, and not expecting respect from others. Giving but not expecting. I'm giving respect to others. I'm chastising them very nicely. I'll be very kind to them and find as many faults in them as I can for their benefit. They need it. They deserve it anyway. We have to be careful. One little thing. We'll mention more later on if we have time. In such a state, we read, one who follows this direction, being freed from the 10 kind of offenses, becomes successful in Krishna consciousness and ultimately reaches the platform of loving service to the personality of Godhead. Well, simple. Again and again, as is repeated by our acharyas, it's simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord offenselessly. There is no need of any other process. We're not doing that. So we have so many other processes there to help us to come to that offenseless chanting. Devotional service, menial service. Don't try to, skive. Menial service. The regulated principles. Getting up, this, that, the other. So many things are there. Study of the scriptures. Going on Sankirtan, I'll read on. One must come to the understanding that the holy name of the Lord and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are identical. As the demigods are seeing the form of the Lord, to see the form of the Lord, one has to be pure in heart. Sometimes the Lord may give that vision, but the general thing, we have to be pure to see the pure. That this is the process of purification, chanting purely the holy name, without offense. One cannot reach this conclusion unless one is offenseless in chanting the holy name. By our material calculation, we see a difference between the name and the substance. But in the spiritual world, the absolute is always absolute. Name, form, quality, and pastimes of the absolute are all as good as the absolute himself. Thus, one is understood to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he considers himself an eternal servant of the holy name, and in this spirit distributes the holy name to the world. This is the mood of service to the name, that we are servants of the name. The name is none different than the Supreme Lord. We are eternal servants of Krishna, that we know. Nityasiddha Krishna. We're all eternal servants of Krishna, Jiva Nitya Krishna Das. That we're eternal servants of the name is none different. And in that mood, we distribute the holy name. This is an important point. Don't be a miser, you'll be miserable. One who chants in that spirit without offenses is certainly elevated to the platform of understanding that the holy name and the personality of Godhead are identical. To associate with the holy name and chant the holy name is to associate with the personality of Godhead directly. We are directly associating with the personality of Godhead, but our minds are somewhere else, maybe, I don't know. Mine is. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu it is clearly said, Sevam mukhi jivado shvayameva spratyadaha. The holy name becomes manifested when one engages in the service of the holy name. This service, in a submissive attitude, begins with one's tongue. Sevam mukhi jivado. One must engage his tongue. And like Lord Brahma's engaging his tongue in praying to the Lord, he's asking for something, because they've got some a little bit materialistic, you could say, but still they're approaching the Lord. The devotee is approaching the Lord for pure devotional service. He's praying to the Lord. This is one of the ways that we could become purified, by prayer. Bhagavatam's full of prayers of all levels. Bhagavad Gita, also prayers are there. All the time. The pure devotee Prabhupada was all praying, all the time, in this prayerful mood, knowing that at any moment we can be swept away by Maya. Any moment. Maya is very strong. It's Krishna's energy. We're tiny energy. We're tiny. Maya is powerful. We always have to be in this humble, submissive mood of prayer, very careful to avoid the offenses. There's not just a mechanical thing. We also have to practically apply it in terms of our dealings with each other. It's very easy to get, angry and upset with each other, and unnecessary. Nowadays we have wonderful technology to make it easier to find faults in each other. Wonderful technology, isn't it? It's fantastic, You just press the button and the whole world knows the ignorance, knows about it, whatever it is. Even if it's wrong, they know about it, and you're finished. It's magnificent technology, becoming expert at using it for good purposes, huh? Criticizing. There are even websites just for that purpose. Do you know that? Solely and wholly to find fault in other people. It's not what we're here for. We're here to find fault in ourselves. Nobody else. Unless it's your duty. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, when he was asked by his disciples one time, Guru Maharaj, should we kind of like, find faults in those who are, envious of Krishna, those who are inimical, should we know, like Hanuman and Arjuna, they're angry with such people? It seems like Krishna incited them in one sense. They use their anger on behalf of Krishna. Should we do that too for those who are envious of Krishna? Gurudev said, yes, you should. But first you have to look and see who is envious of Krishna. And when I look at myself, I find no one more envious than myself. So to whom should I use anger? We're very expert at, finding the problem outside. All these things that help us to realize that we have a little homework to do, maybe. And if you're in a position of responsibility, we have to obviously do the needful. But in an appropriate way as possible. We're not pure, but as best as we can, in a way of compassion, in a way of concern for the other person, not in a way to make them leave or make them feel awful or make them, cry or whatever it is. Don't be Ravana. Ravana means one who makes others cry. Hare Krishna, you can make them cry in ecstasy. Hare Krishna consciousness movement is based on this principle. We try to engage all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement in the service of the holy name. Since the holy name and Krishna are non-different, the members of the Krishna consciousness movement not only chant the holy name of the Lord offenselessly, but also do not allow their tongues, their tongues to eat anything that is not first offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not anyone else, not to Lord Shiva or somebody else, to the Supreme Personality. Well, somebody asked one day, oh, if we can't offer chocolate to Krishna, who do we offer it to? Someone said Lord Shiva, but that doesn't quite fit into this category here. I don't know if he likes chocolate or not. It's better than not offering it to anyone, but it's not quite the real point. You know. There are probably a few other things on our menu which are not offerable to Krishna. Bear it in mind if you want to advance in Krishna consciousness. If you're on a very low level, or we are on a very low level, I suppose, but if we are on want to remain on it, then we continue doing things that we did before, and we offer them to somebody up there and hope that they accept it and turn it into something good. You know, whether it's decaffeinated coffee or whatever it may be, or this thing and that thing, so many things which we may be a little bit attached to, or meat, vegetarian meat. Sorry, you can see in vegetarian meat is it's not the sort of thing for favourable advancement in spiritual life. So, what to speak of chanting the holy name, and I'm not even going to get into it, all the varieties of Mahamantras which we hear left, right and centre when I listen to my own chanting. What to speak, I try to listen to your own chanting. It's a good idea to record it sometimes and see what it sounds like. It's quite, you have a bit of laugh. You have to have a laugh now and again at least, But then become serious. My God, I better get my act together. Prabhupada did say that, at least in the beginning, we have to pronounce. The holy name should be pronounced clearly, with the upper and lower lips and the tongue. They should be heard. It's Krishna. It's not different than Krishna. If we're talking to someone, we try to talk to them clearly. Especially if we're addressing them by name, you try to get their name right. You will say, if you're on stage, you've got to introduce people. You'll say, what was their name? What was their name? How do I pronounce it? How do I pronounce it? Some foreign name. And, because it's like embarrassing on stage if you say it all wrong, So what to speak of when we're in front of Krishna and chanting the holy names? So what else? Okay, so offences, we have to try to avoid the offences, and it is a common one with modern technology. We've already mentioned this tendency to fault find and criticise. Let's get into the real essence of Krishna consciousness, glorification. Bhaktivinoda describes, when he describes the 10 offences, he said, when in the Padma Purana indicates the 10 offences should be avoided, it's actually indicating the positive side. Instead of blaspheming those devotees who've dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord, and I can do that anyway, Prabhu, because you have not dedicated your life, so I can blaspheme you. It doesn't mean that. We can interpret that if we want, but anyone who's following a pure devotee, is actually in that category, so we have to be careful. But it means the positive things. Instead of blaspheming them, we should find the good in them. We should praise them, try to encourage them, in appropriate ways. And it goes through all the 10 offences. Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes through all the 10 offences like this in a positive way. Instead of blaspheming the Vedic literatures, we should hear the Vedic literatures from the right source and apply them, and so on and so forth. Instead of disobeying the orders of the spiritual master, we should follow them. Different things like that. He puts the positive look on it. Because if you put the positive look on it, the negative one is not there automatically. So one of the secrets in spiritual life, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj points out again and again, is service to the Vaishnavas. If we want, and Prabhupada has also said exactly the same thing, he said that the secret of success in developing Krishna consciousness, and especially in getting a taste for chanting the name, is service to the Guru and the Vaishnavas. It is the gateway, it is the key to the door of pure devotional service. Serving the Vaishnavas, serving them. If you think it's service to them by trying to disfame them and criticize them, fault find, that's another thing. We pray and hope that somehow or other we can change. But that is not the process of a devotee is free from the propensity to find fault in others. It's distasteful. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing. It's like a disease, like a cancer in our consciousness or something. It has to be rooted out. And the best way is to serve the devotees, to try to become a menial servant and see the good in other devotees and try to encourage them in that service, like that. So that's another thing. Being positive in one's chanting, being attentive, Most of us have a struggle with attentive chanting, we know that. And how do we, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also describes the secret to that is to associate with devotees who are serious about chanting. Same with Bhagavatam. Anyone knows if you associate with Narayani Mataji, you'll become attracted to hear the Bhagavatam. Anyone's experienced that. Many devotees, Burijan Prabhu and so many others who are serious about their devotional service. If we don't just sit around talking about the faults of others, we sit around talking how we can cure our own faults by exposing. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, the only thing we have to do, there's nothing to be reformed exactly, it's our own perception, our own consciousness. And our consciousness is changed by exposing ourselves to the pure holy name. Because it works on us. Krishna is Pavitram, he's the purifier. Cleanses our hearts of all these dirty thoughts, or dirty perception really, is how we see the world, how we see others, which has to be changed. Not others, they have their own lives, they have their own path. Our business is to change how we see them, how we see the world, how we see ourselves, and so on, how we see Krishna. And by the association of pure devotees, and by the association of the name, in the association of those who are pure, then gradually our perception can become pure. So it's important that we associate properly, not we just sit around, eating vegetarian meat and talking about God knows what, but to hear and chant about Krishna. Try to, and we have to be willing. That submissiveness means we're willing to change. We're willing to be, we're willing to be corrected. Whether the other person is rightful in their correction or not, we accept it as rightful. Because we see that they're an agent of Krishna, helping to point out my own faults. So is the person who's being criticized is lucky, you could say, if they take it like that. The other person may or may not be. This is the principle, to clear away all these false perceptions. Because our eyes are covered. Our eyes are covered, therefore we can't see Krishna. We haven't got this vision of Krishna everywhere or in everything. We've theoretically maybe a good start. But practically, to actually realize that, we have to purify our hearts. Which means purifying our consciousness, purifying our very perception, etc. of life. So we could go on, but we have to finish there. Time and tide wait for no man. Even in Vrindavan, we have so many things to do. And thank you all very much. Any questions? Yes. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you for your question.
Yes, thank you very much for the class, Maharaj. The question is, you mentioned how we have to accept the authorities, like sampradayas and so on. So the question is, you have to accept the spiritual master that can see the truth, like the last verse you quote in Bhagavad Gita,
yeah, they have to see the truth. So that's,
see the truth.
Yeah. Somebody who's seeing Srila Prabhupada and following his instructions, although they may not be on that platform of realization in that sense, is nonetheless in that category. They're connected to that personality. If they're actually connected, then the message will also be there. But we have to understand that Srila Prabhupada is our Siksha Guru. They're not changing the message. They're accepting the message of Prabhupada and they're simply teaching us that message. So in that sense, they are just passing on their peon. Prabhupada said, peon. We're passing on that message of the pure devotees, the acharyas who've seen the truth. And if we apply it, it's a very powerful message, and Prabhupada has given all of his instructions in his books, in his lectures, in his letters, in so many places. And if we're following someone, the necessity is there in the path of devotional service to accept Diksha. It has to be accepted from somebody who's following that line of Parampara, following it sincerely. So they may not have seen the truth in the same way that you may be feeling or so, but we've seen one has accepted Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada is non-different in that sense. He's always with Krishna. Anything else?
Maybe before posting things on the internet, we can see if it passes the test of the austerity of speech. Is it truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating to others, and based on scripture?
Is there a question? I don't know if it passes the test. Probably doesn't. If you ask me, it doesn't.
If we institute that somehow in our own minds, others, that would change a lot of what gets posted.
I think so. Yeah. If we all look to ourselves and see what we have, what we can do. It's always what someone else can do. Not always, but a lot of the time it's what someone else can do. If we look and see what I can do, to help. It might help yourself. Charity begins at home, you could say, but automatically that will help others. If we're not looking at our own problems, it's not much point pointing out others. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And they may be sincere and they may take the medicine. That's their good fortune. But in principle, it's not going to work. It's just going to end up in arguments, back and forth, like animals fighting, like monkeys practically. Anything else? I see everyone's eager for breakfast, prasadam, food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which it is, here in Vrindavan. Wonderful. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.